I don't think we do, Tom.
You don't think we have the same cold open idea?
I don't think we have the same cold open idea.
Okay, so you go with your cold open idea, and then I'll say that if we had the same idea or not.
Okay.
Okay, go.
I wanted to start the show by asking, you think you're better than me?
Do I think I'm better than you?
You think you're better than me?
I don't. No.
Well, you basically gave me the non-exclusive franchise tag yesterday.
Oh.
Going live to talk about NFL news without me? Do you know what it's like to see that, Tom?
I mean, you put out your own news episode like 3 minutes after I went live. Like you were working on that. You put out a whole...
what it's like to see you succeeding without me in this format.
Can I do my cold open now? Oh, baby. We here.
We got fuzz in our beard, but we steer.
You in the right direction. Welcome to another edition of the Grossi Perna Show. I'm Tom Grossi. That's Brandon Perna. And this is GPS. Can I do my cold open now?
Yeah.
Well, now it's too late. I like to. No, that was honestly the best cold open that we could have possibly done. So that's it.
Mom and Dad got to work through some shit. All right.
We gotta work through some things. That's it. Today is the 1-year anniversary. Happy 3-8, everybody, of the Russell Wilson trade. Oh, what a day! A day that will live in infamy. It's true.
What happened with that trade is we thought maybe Russ, by the end of his new contract, will play really poorly. Maybe he'll be washed and we got to deal with one bad year from Russ. Well, we got the one bad year out of the way and things are going up. Going up. Yeah. We all know.
Honestly, like that might be one of the top 5 moments ever in GPS.
We've got a weird differing idea of what the word top means.
Well, no, I completely agree with that. I think you and I have very different definitions of rankings. Very, 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 very
accurate, inaccurate.
Yep, I agree with that too. Yep. Yeah, we have a lot to talk about today. A lot.
We got a lot to talk about. Plus, we got a guest coming in midway through the show. EJ Snyder going to come and break down some NFL ball-catching draft prospects for us.
So you messed up, Brandon. You should have said we have Mr. Snyder joining us.
Oh, we have Snyder.
Could have been Dan. Could have been Zach. We could have been talking about the DC Extended Universe. We could have been talking about poo water, but
dang.
I have all my notes here. These aren't real.
Plus, everyone's colluding against Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, that's what I really want to talk about because that's the one thing that started gaining traction after I went live, and I didn't really get to jump into it, and I figured we'd talk about it here.
You mean on your show that's this show, but without me?
Oh, you mean like how you did a whole episode, based on the exact same topics?
Well, I did not talk about the colluding.
Neither did I, so continue.
Actually, I saw you go live, and I was trying to finish my edit, and I just felt like this immense pressure to get it done. I was like, "Oh God, Tom's out there. He's already live talking about all this shit. I gotta get this done now."
It also is. It's Aaron Rodgers.
Why do you feel the need to try and get your episode done quicker? I was like, "You should actually just wait until Tom's done and then get your shit on there."
Iron sharpens iron. That's it.
I was like, I was mostly mad. I wasn't mad. I was like, damn, that's just a smarter way to do yesterday. Because like you said before the show, stuff just kept changing like every 10 minutes.
Dude. It was so I was talking to Brandon about this. Kevin, happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Kevin.
So like I recorded, it was about like a 9-minute video about like Aaron Rodgers and meeting with the Jets and what have you. And I asked Johnny, I was like, hey, dude, do you mind just like editing this? And he's like, not a problem. And we kept having to just like change it throughout the day. Because then Ian Rappaport came out and was like, oh no, the Packers are still like, come on back, Aaron. Like, we'll accept you. You could just go cheat on us for a little bit and get wined and dined. Like there was that report. Then there was a report that you actually had like the guys, like the whole entire Jets organization flying out to California. Like it was a wild time yesterday. And now we just wait because they didn't leave until close to midnight Pacific time. And they didn't get back till 6:40 this morning Eastern time. So they were there for a good chunk of the day. There was a lot of
whining. They just stay the night at that point. Got to question that decision-making process.
Maybe they're not at that level yet.
Sleep on the private plane, I guess.
Well, it's a first date. You sleep over on the first date. Some people have varying opinions about that.
Yeah, I woke up yesterday. I was like, oh shit, Rodgers talked to the Jets. Awesome, that's a big thing. And then I was like, Lamar's probably just going to get tagged by the Ravens today. It's just a question of which tag. And there's all these like links to teams that might be interested in Lamar Jackson. So it's like, let's just get an episode up with those two big things. I cut out a ton of stuff that I'm going to try to talk about later today, like Joe Mixon, like Jackson, like all the stuff that people would have clicked on. And then by the time I'm uploading, Falcons out on Lamar Jackson. I was like, I don't really believe that. I think that's just like a team maybe trying to keep their cards close to their vest.
Can we also talk about how weird it was? Because like it was the actual Falcons Twitter account that retweeted that they were out on Lamar Jackson.
Yeah, that's just...
It was like a social media manager either getting like word from like up and ups and like, hey, retweet this reporter. It's just weird. Like it was a very... Like, this is usually not how, like, we thought it was weird when the Cowboys kind of blamed Dak Prescott for the loss. And we were like, that's not really something that a team's Twitter account does. And then, like, this happened. It's like, that's odd, too.
Yeah. So that's
the main story. I want to jump into that.
Like, I want to talk about Lamar because it's weird. The Aaron Rodgers thing, we kind of saw coming, and it's very simple. It's either the Jets, he goes back to the Packers, or he retires. But now we know it's basically only the Jets if he goes somewhere else. But Lamar Jackson gets the non-exclusive tag, which you almost never see a team place on a quarterback, right? It's used for other players. But with the non-exclusive tag, if you're not familiar, basically a team can give Lamar Jackson an offer. Then the Ravens can either match that offer or let him go to that team. And then they'll get 2 first-round draft picks in compensation back for Lamar Jackson. It's like a standardized contract and pick scenario.
Like compensation. They have a week. So basically, if I just use the Raiders, for example, if the Raiders are like, we're going to give you $200 million, for 5 years, then they could go back and they're like, all right, Ravens, you have 7 days to try and match this. If the Ravens are like, we're not paying you $200 million, then they would just get 2 first-round picks from the Raiders at that point.
Correct.
So
you did a much better job.
BLV! Whoop! Pray for the kitty. Currently in New Orleans. Go across the pond and see you. Thanks. Tell Papa Grossi. I'll taste the restaurants he recommended. Hell yeah. Wait, you're going across the pond? Well, there's only one thing then.
Grossi Posse. Grossi Pouzy.
Enjoy yourself. Enjoy yourself. But so yes, they put the non-exclusive tag on him. So Lamar Jackson can still go around and he can try to negotiate some deals. He's allowed to do that. And again, there's a little other extra caveat on top of that because Lamar Jackson is his own agent.
Yeah.
And that has been talked about now. And you're kind of starting to see maybe some of the negatives that go along with it.
Yeah.
I think people were talking about this on Twitter. While agents do take a portion of your money, right?
Like
they are
3% or something. It's like a standardized thing.
They're the buffer between you and the team.
Yeah.
So if a team is not giving you a deal and you're like, well, I'm going to take this kind of personally because it's just me dealing with the organization. I think, there could be some feelings hurt in a business, but again, we're all professionals and like all adults here, but some vary. But there's that element. But then there's the element of Lamar needs to now go to these teams and be like, hey, so do you want me? And so all of this happens yesterday, and then just like dominoes, and it seemed very orchestrated. Teams who do not even have QB1s right now, you had all these reporters going, yeah, no, we're not interested in Lamar Jackson. And like publicly saying that, like through reporters. And like
through reporters.
Yeah, like reporters like coming out and saying like, yeah, we're not interested. Yeah, the Falcons retweeting it. And what was it? It was the Falcons, it was the Panthers, it was the Raiders, but then the Raiders might be back in on it. It was the Commanders. Like there's a bunch of teams that are like, oh yeah, all of a sudden, no, we're not interested in Lamar Jackson. And again, like Ari from PFF kept talking about this, like it's free to talk to Lamar Jackson. It's not like you're meeting with a lawyer and you're just like, hey, listen, it's like $1,500 for this consultation. It's free just to talk to him, but it was very strange that it was kind of like, hey, we're not even going to touch this. And so all of a sudden there's now these there's two trains of thought. Either one, no team is like going to pay the amount of money that it's going to cost for Lamar Jackson. And they really do see him as he's injured. Maybe he's a little overrated. What have you? There's that camp as to why this is happening. And then there's the other camp, and that's the title of this show. Are owners potentially colluding with one another to make sure that there's not going to be a Deshaun Watson type deal, because the Browns screwed the QB market and the owners are trying to recapture it a little bit.
Yeah, I would like to commend the Cleveland Browns for mastering the art of screwing themselves so perfectly that they decided to step up their game and start screwing other players and teams across the league. Like, hey, we can't just beat ourselves anymore. Let's make it difficult for other entities around the league and pay the wrath of our signing of Deshaun Watson.
Yeah.
Lamar Jackson, I think what I kind of learned, I guess, like from Russell Wilson signing with the Broncos last year is I don't believe any of these teams are out on Lamar Jackson. To me, that feels like a negotiating tactic. Either one, the team setting a line to start a negotiation process with Lamar, or these teams not wanting other teams to know that they're actually interested in Lamar so they can have a conversation with him. And it might be easier without the agent. It might be easier to have the conversation with Lamar Jackson if you're one of these other teams in secrecy, because like his whole free agency process has been weird. Because it is just him. It's just him who's talked to the Ravens. So like, I think that could be a real possibility, because Russ coming to Denver, there was like rumors about it. And then it was like, yeah, the Broncos aren't going to trade for Russell Wilson. It's they're interested in Aaron Rodgers. They can't make that happen. They're moving on. And then what do we know? Russell Wilson comes to Denver. So I don't know if the teams are using some of their connections to ESPN and Fox through their reporters to just muddy the waters here, or if it is like, if all of these teams are like, yeah, we're out, that looks like solidarity with the Ravens. You know what I mean? In that we're not going to be the team that comes out and takes advantage of you being forced to use the non-exclusive tag on Lamar Jackson, because there is this sort of thing where like owners abide by some unwritten rules towards each other. And we see it with situations like this. The last example, people like to use is that they all colluded, against Colin Kaepernick, and nobody would sign him or give him like a legit shot. So, that could be possible. And the only team out of the Falcons, Dolphins, Panthers, Commanders, and Raiders, to me, that makes sense to come out and say we're not interested in Lamar Jackson is the Dolphins, because there's two of there. And you don't want to do what the Falcons did to Matt Ryan last year and alienate him, because if you don't get him, you definitely need Tua coming back, and you want him to believe that you believe in him. So that's the only team where I'd go, okay, yeah, that makes sense to say. from a PR standpoint. But I
because it seems like
understand why those teams wouldn't be interested in taking a shot at Lamar.
And I'm sorry, I don't mean this to be an insult. The fact that what Russell Wilson got in a trade, there are like 5 teams off the top of my head that would trade 2 firsts for Lamar Jackson. Because it's like, oh, why not? Like, if you are in need of a QB1 and he would be your franchise guy for the long run, like that's what the Raiders were complaining about, right? They wanted to get like Aaron Rodgers, but then, they don't want Aaron Rodgers because he's not only going to be there for a short amount of time. There's going to be a really short window. Lamar Jackson, that ain't going to be a short window, right? You can design your entire offense around him if you want to. Like, it makes no sense. Same thing with the Panthers. The Falcons could go either way because I was talking about this. They have a lot of holes, but like they have Algier looks really good, right? Cordero Patterson. So they have like the running backs. They have a wide receiver in Drake London. They have a tight end in Kyle Pitts. If they like, that's a young foundation that they could build upon. So
and see, this is exactly why I don't believe any of these teams are out.
Correct.
Because it hasn't even been 24 hours.
Correct.
And we had conflicting reports to start with, and now there's more conflicting reports on the reports that have been reported. So
because the idea is that they want to avoid this, right? Because you look at this, one of these numbers does not look like the other. And this is not just like, how much you're going to get paid over this is guaranteed money. Yeah. And that's the real problem because you have the trade compensation, which was insane, right? 3 first-round picks. The Browns gave up the farm. And there's that. Then you'll also see like Patrick Mahomes, for example, right? $500 million, but it's over like 10 years. And like the money, like I think it balloons up to like, I think it's 2027. I looked at this yesterday. 2027 is like $59 million cap hit. Like it's big. Don't get me wrong. But by 2027, these numbers are going to be super inflated. The problem with this is guaranteed money because you have players who want this to go to be more like the NBA where you're going to have like more guaranteed money. So in case like you're going to have injuries or you get cut or what have you, because unlike coaches, so you look at like Nathaniel Hackett in your situation, Nathaniel Hackett, he's getting paid by Denver because that's not going against the salary cap. Like that's money where you have like these rich owners who can do whatever they want. That's not going against the salary cap. But for players, if they like screw up, get hurt, what have you, oh well, like that's the end of the line. So what the Browns did is they guaranteed his entire freaking contract. And that is what owners want to avoid because they don't want to give him that guaranteed money because it's in a league where a lot of people get hurt and, your prime can go like this.
Yeah. And to the Desmond Ridder point, this is the Sam Howell point. So the Commanders, they've got Sam Howell. Falcons, they've got Desmond Ridder. Lamar Jackson is better than both of those quarterbacks. He is currently better than those quarterbacks. He will continue to be better than both of those quarterbacks. You do not find talent like Lamar Jackson that often. And if you're a Falcons fan, if you're a Commanders fan, and you don't have the option of Lamar Jackson, then you should feel cautiously optimistic about rolling into the season with either of those guys.
Because Perna, to this point right here, if you're Lamar Jackson, sorry, you shouldn't have done that stupid deal. But I think Lamar Jackson is well within his rights to look at this and go, why can't I get that? That's not my fault. I didn't do it. And it's a division rival. And for a guy who hadn't played, for the guy with all these accusations, for all of this stuff, why can't I get more guaranteed money? And I think that's a legitimate question.
It's within the division, and within the division last season, even though Lamar Jackson didn't finish out the season because of an injury, he played a lot better than Deshaun Watson did. He played a lot better than Deshaun, even with the injury. And then people they want to use Lamar has been injured the last 2 seasons to finish out the season. What have the Ravens just been criticized for over the last 2 weeks? Having one of the worst training staffs in the league, where we've seen multiple players come out and talk about how their injuries were made worse by the Ravens staff. So maybe that's another reason Lamar didn't want to play at the end of last season. And maybe if he goes somewhere else, he doesn't get hurt. And I don't think his injuries are that much of a concern. Like, it's not like a torn ACL. It wasn't a season-ending thing. I still think like he would be incredibly valuable to any team that made a play for him. And it might be more about giving up the 2 draft picks for one of the teams trying to make a play versus paying him. That to me, that's only like giving up 1 first rounder, because if you're a quarterback needy team, you're probably already thinking about using your current first round pick for a QB. So you're basically using that to get your QB, and then it's a first rounder next year, which I think you can live with.
Which would be later too, because theoretically, like, for example, let's take the Panthers. The Panthers, we talk about young defense. They have some good guys like on offense. They're definitely like, a young team that's rebuilding. You put Lamar Jackson back there with Frank Reich, let's have ourselves a day. You give up 2 of those first, because you're thinking, all right, you give up a good pick this year, but it's not like at the end of the world. And then next year, it's going to be hopefully like in the teens, 20s. And because you're going to be better, you'll probably win the division. So,
yeah. And it's like we keep getting stuck on like he wants the guaranteed money, the guaranteed contract. So he's wanting closer to what, like probably $50 million a year guaranteed, right? Because that's kind of where Rodgers is at, where Russ was at with his contract. If you're an NFL organization, I don't understand how in the same day we could watch the New York Giants basically guarantee Daniel Jones $40 million a year, more depending on how like the incentives are, but it could be a little more than $40 million a year. But you wouldn't want to just do $10 million more per season for Lamar Jackson. You're basically talking about, in terms of how that affects your cap, of probably not being able to sign like one veteran type player in free agency for, I don't know, your linebacker position, or like you just have to hit on your draft pick somewhere else for another position. That's like the trade-off. Paying that $10 million guaranteed doesn't mean you can't have a team around the quarterback. And it's like that becomes the discussion though, right? Like, oh, we can't give him that guaranteed money. Why? It's not going to kill your franchise, your organization. You might have one rough year with your cap, but you're betting on your quarterback being good enough where that doesn't matter.
And I'm sorry, like that entire, so the Browns had no problem giving away their future and also giving all this guaranteed money. So like, you can, it's just, you need a bunch of cap space, one. And again, like in a few years, all these TV deals, like you're going to see these QBs who are going to make like $50-60 million. So
the Ravens might be suffering from Flacco-itis.
But you know what? Like that's their fault. Sorry, they didn't give him a contract. Then he won a Super Bowl, and they were like, "Well, crap. Now we have to pay him." Like that.
Different GM though, too. So.
Yeah. I mean, listen. You talk about mismanagement, because the Giants, for example, like they're in the news, obviously, because they tagged Saquon Barkley, who does not want to play on the tag. So we'll see what kind of happens there. But they just gave Daniel Jones a 4-year deal for $160 million. And like, I think it's like $82 million guaranteed and all this stuff. And Daniel Jones, as you have been the person, be like, guys, like he had one okay season, just like one. It was okay. But at the same time, they could have saved themselves a lot of trouble because they didn't pick up his 5th-year option. They could have paid him around $20 million next season, guaranteed. Say, hey, is this sustainable for another year? And then given him another deal. But they were like, nope, we're not going to do it. And then he has the season that he has.
Yeah. That's also fair, Kaylee.
It's true.
The cap, it is real, but it
is.
It's made of clay, not stone. It can be molded and manipulated every year. Even stone, you can chisel, but steel, it's not made of steel.
That's good.
If I could re-sign Russell Wilson, I would give him even more money.
Jeffrey, everything.
Well, other than win MVP? Other than win the unanimous best player in the league award? Oh my God.
I mean, the guy is incredibly athletically. I think he's more athletically gifted. I think he has a better arm than Daniel Jones, just in terms of like ability to throwing power. And I think he's a better overall round player.
He's
And
so much more dynamic than
I
Daniel
don't think that's a
Jones.
knock necessarily on Daniel Jones. It's just like Lamar is more athletically gifted and has shown more of a track record of that. Daniel Jones, there's a reason why they didn't pick up the 5th-year option, because he wasn't good. Like, he hasn't been good.
Yeah.
So
he threw 2 more touchdowns than Dan Jones last year and didn't play for a good chunk of the season. Where was his rush? Because Dan Jones, he did rush for a lot of yards, right? He had like 700 rushing
He's an athletic dude, and he didn't fall, so that's good.
Lamar Jackson also had more rushing yards last season than Daniel Jones. Again, not playing for how many? Was it the last 6 games? He
didn't play for a while. He was out for at least like a month and a half.
The last 5 games.
Yeah.
So there's a good chance Lamar Jackson would have been 1,000-yard rushing QB last season with over 20 passing touchdowns.
Game-changing talent. I agree with that. So, 2 first round. He is only 26, too. Like, that's the thing, too. Yeah. He is still so young.
Yeah.
And I don't. If you're the Denver Broncos, like, put it this way. Let's just say the Russell Wilson trade didn't happen. You're telling me the Denver Broncos are not willing to give up 2 first-round picks for Lamar Jackson right now? Like, if Russell Wilson
Lamar would be a Bronco today.
It would be like today, done. Like, you wouldn't even have to think about it for 3 seconds.
Lamar Jackson would be the majority stakeholder in Walmart if the Broncos had the option to get him. He would be a billionaire right now based on stock options through Wally World. Meow.
And we also have to thank the cat. Appreciate you, John. We also have to thank the cat because that's why Tom Brady is staying home.
Look, and you might be concerned about Lamar Jackson as he gets a little bit older, right? Because such a big part of his game is what he can do with his legs. But like, I don't know. The thing is, we don't know what Lamar Jackson actually wants. We know he wants a lot of guaranteed money. That's kind of all we know. But if you're a team and you can offer him 3 years fully guaranteed at kind of what he wants, that's like a safe window in terms of where I think he can still be one of the most dynamic players at the position in the league.
Can I just ask a question real quick? Look at this list. Obviously, there's the stupid Deshaun Watson one, but who else stands out on this list, Brandon, of a QB who's athletic but hasn't really done a whole lot?
Oh, Patrick Mahomes.
You're like, God, why do
Kyler Murray.
Why? Thank you.
Josh Allen, maybe just a little bit last year.
It's Kyler Murray, right? They gave Kyler Murray nearly $190 million guaranteed.
Yeah. Kyler Murray can't even ride a roller coaster legally. So.
I love how you said legally.
There's laws.
He has like the inserts in his shoes, and that's how he's getting away with it. The cops are pulling him over, and they're like, let's see those shoes. As it adds 3 inches so he can ride the dragon coaster.
Yeah. Yep.
Well done. Well done. All right, Brandon, take it away.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, we got a special guest coming in here. You might know him from Fear Factor. He was also in some. Okay, Johnny. That's why I can shame him for being short. Wait,
have you ever been on a roller coaster?
Yeah, but I don't really like roller coasters. They're
So
fucking scary.
that was a hardcore projection right there. That was a hardcore. Yeah. I don't even like them. I wouldn't go on them.
I like them.
I wouldn't go on them even if I could. You know.
Yeah. I'm just gonna bring EJ in. I really butchered that intro.
What an intro. You know him from Fear Factor and things. There you go.
Joe Rogan, ladies and gentlemen.
That's right. Some really bad Sharknado 13. It was an extra. Oh, man.
What is up, EJ?
Oh, well, you had to bring me in to listen to the back end of the Lamar debate just to get me really heated because I'm a longtime Lamar Jackson stan. He's actually the reason I know what Earhart Perkins is. because everybody kept saying in college, like, dude, he can't throw, he just runs. And I was like, doesn't he run the offense the Patriots run, like in college? And so I dug in when he was at Louisville and figured out what Earhart Perkins was. And I was like, he's going to be fine. He's going to be great. And then
What is that?
Earhart Perkins is named after two offensive coordinators who built the offense. And really, it's the basis of what Brady ran for most of his career in New England under Belichick and Josh McDaniels and everybody else. It was the offense they had so much success under. And literally, that's the offense Lamar ran at Louisville. Everybody was like, well, he's a runner, because obviously when he takes off, you can't take your eyes off him. But I really said, okay, he's going to have to be a passer in the NFL. And so I really dug in at Louisville and figured out what offense he was running and what that required of him, both physically and mentally. And I was like, dude, he's going to be fine. And everybody's like, no, he's an athlete. He should be a running back. And I was like, oh, okay. All right. You're just saying the loud thing quietly. Got it. All right. So long time Lamar stan, and what's happened over the last 24 hours is just sort of more gas for the fire there.
It is crazy. And even like,
it's ridiculous.
Like, I don't watch a lot of college football, but I remember, the Broncos were possibly considering quarterbacks around then. We opted for Edge instead of Josh Allen or Lamar Jackson. I'm not upset about that at all. No. But like you heard the same narrative about Lamar. And so I was like, let me just go look at, his stats from college and try and watch some highlights. And when I watch like a quarterback highlights, like I'm just looking for a couple throws that look like NFL throws to me, where guys aren't wide open. I was like, okay, he can make some good throws. And I was like, he's throwing for over 3,000 yards in college, like 20, like almost, what was it, but 30 touchdown passes, 27 touchdown passes. I was like, those are pretty good passing stats for a college QB who can also do this. Yeah, I would take it.
And at the same time, like there's like the injury concerns. There's like, it's like, oh, well, he gets injured a lot because of his physical play. Nobody had any problem with this. Like when we were talking about Josh Allen, Deshaun Watson, like, like no one had problem giving these guys like major contracts.
Carson Wentz.
Oh, good God. Yeah. I
right.
mean, like, there's these contracts that have been given out. And I think it's just, why is Lamar different? Like out of all these guys who are getting these big time deals, why is it Lamar Jackson who's getting the short end of the stick here? Because there's a lot of QBs that play a similar style to him, but he does it better.
Yeah.
So
I think it might be because he is just different and he's a quarterback without an agent. And I think maybe that scares teams. Like they've got to deal with him directly. And that's just a little bit more complicated of a process. And I think that's like the thing, like, so Lamar Jackson gets tagged yesterday. I'm not surprised that NFL teams didn't immediately try and sign the guy they haven't been able to talk to until that moment yesterday. You know what I mean? Like we just want
been able to talk to.
Yeah. Well, I mean, but usually they can talk to an agent and get some info. Like, I don't know if they've actually been talking to Lamar. Like he hasn't even been allegedly talking to the Ravens. Like he's been hard to get a hold of. And maybe teams are just turned off by like the process the Ravens have had to go through to try and work this out with him. But who knows? But we brought EJ in, who, if you don't know, hosts the Bootleg podcast with Brett Coleman. They break down football in ways that people who understand football do. So kind of the opposite of what Tom and I do here. And EJ knows college players, knows the draft. So I wanted to get you on the show to start talking about different prospects coming out. Basically, so I don't have to do the research on my own.
Sure. I'll give you the answers to the test. It's just like high school.
You're just like, yeah, exactly.
There you go.
So today we thought about maybe talking about wide receivers, because both our teams, the Packers and Broncos, could be interested. Also, I wanted to start with receivers because it's not as deep, top end heavy of a class as the last couple of years. And I usually think that's where you can find the gems, is when nobody's talking about the position group. That's where, and it's especially my team doesn't pick till the third freaking round. So I kind of need the deep sleepers, EJ. Who do you like? Who's your guy right now as a receiver?
Oh, it's a great question. It really depends on fit. Like so much of any rookie's production in the NFL is where they land. It's
Okay.
all
Yeah.
about fit. So if I am a team like, say I'm a team like Seattle and I already have DK and Lockett and I'm looking for a really good third receiver, I'm looking for something very different than if I'm a team like, say, close your ears, Tom, Bears, that has no receivers, right? That has Darnell Mooney and not a lot else on the roster. I could really take anything and it would be an addition. So different players. But if I'm looking at guys at the top, yeah, we won't even talk about the offense that Greg Roman ran or talent around.
Oh yeah, talk about again. Yeah, Greg Roman, training staff, terribleness. Ty, I'll get you on the clip afterwards. I don't want to interrupt EJ.
It's okay, Tom. And so for wide receivers, there's some really good receivers, and I think your assessment of the class or what you took from somebody else about the assessment of the class is dead on. It lacks the alpha types. There are not, if you need that DeAndre Hopkins guy that you are going to throw to on 3rd and 8, and he's going to go out and win every single time. There are less of those. Doesn't mean it's not a deep class. There are a lot of talented guys down throughout the rounds who are going to be able to contribute in a way to a sort of diverse wide receiver room. So I like the class overall, but it doesn't have those few top end stars. And Greg Cassell just came out and said that yesterday or today. And I was like, we've been saying that for like a month. Glad somebody who's really, really smart agrees with me.
Yeah, Greg's great.
So
but he didn't want to come on the show today. So
hey, I'll take his seconds. Like if it's Greg Cassell seconds, like I'm all about it.
Perna, I can't even with you. So EJ, what you're telling me is that if the Green Bay Packers do wind up getting let's just say pick 13, an additional first round pick. Maybe with the 15th overall pick, maybe they take a look at this game right here. A lot of Packers fans who are looking at him right now and saying, because I think they'll go edge. Like
that's CJ Stroud.
Yep, that's CJ Stroud, Brandon.
That's CJ Stroud's favorite person in the world. Or second favorite person in the world behind Marvin Harrison Jr., but still. What Jackson Smith-Njigba, the wide receiver from Ohio State, did at the combine this weekend was, I think, a validation. There are sort of 3 performances at the combine. Completely flamed out and did way worse than we expected. Came in and did as we expected. We call that confirming priors, right? We thought this, and yes, that's the way he looks. Or holy crap, we weren't expecting that, and they did way better than that. And that's the Anthony Richardsons of the world who, we expected the athleticism. We didn't necessarily expect the entire package. He apparently blew away the interviews as well. And really, those are the guys that, quote unquote, elevate their stock or are risers, as much as you might dislike that term. Jackson Smith-Njigba came in and said, yeah, I caught all those passes for a reason when I was healthy. I am incredibly quick. I have great hands. I am tremendous after the catch. Yeah, I might not be a burner, but I'm going to be a really good NFL wide receiver from like moment one.
That's kind of like you mentioned DeAndre Hopkins too. Like he's never been a burner, but he's just been one of the best receivers and maybe just like the best hands in the NFL for like the last 10 years.
Well, you were talking about Kyler and like Kyler Murray, for all of his other faults at quarterback, of which there are some. He has real strengths and he has real faults. One of his strengths, besides the running, which is what everybody talks about, is a deep fade ball. Like Kyler throws a really good deep sideline fade ball. And guess what? DeAndre Hopkins is really good at catching, like deep sideline fade balls. So again, you look at that as you're building your team and you go, hey, we spent all these picks and all this money to go get this quarterback. What's he really good at? Well, he can run around for 11 seconds and then score a touchdown if we need him to. But if we want him to play within structure, he's got a nice arm. He throws a really nice deep fade ball to the sideline. Let's get a wide receiver that can go get those, and then you're making yourself plays. So
another guy who's pretty good at doing that, Russell Wilson. Even still.
Yes.
Who's a deep fade ball guy the Broncos could draft in the 3rd round?
See, that's the thing. It's the 3rd round. And I love this because, like you said, I love the deep cuts in the draft. I love sleepers. I love UDFAs. That's kind of my jam. So I had to look down the range and go, oh, when are the Broncos picking? Oh, no.
We got 2 at the top of the 3rd.
Yeah. I was like, okay. So
unless
we got
trade Cortland Sutton, Who knows?
Yeah, and there's smoke about that. We'll talk about that. But so if Cortland Sutton gets traded, I think it's an if at this point. I don't think it's any kind of guarantee. But if they did, they would have a hole in their wide receiver room because they got a new coach too. I think you probably heard about that. And Peyton likes his holy trinity of wide receivers. He likes the one all-arounder, which in his time in New Orleans was Michael Thomas.
Yep.
He likes one biggish outside contested catch guy, which is really the guy we're kind of talking about in this role here. That was Marquez Callaway for a while. It was Traquan Smith. And then he likes one blazer. He likes to have one guy that can absolutely just run the seam and take the top off defense. He had Ted Ginn Jr. later in his tenure, but he had some other guys earlier. And he likes to have that diversity in his wide receiver core. If you look at his offenses from his time in New Orleans, which is a long time, that's what he likes to have. So if Sutton goes, they have those other two roles in Denver, but they would really need that sort of biggish outside contested catch guy. So down in the round 3 to round 5 range, Antoine Green from North Carolina is a guy like he's 6'1", he's 199. Got my attention at the Shrine Bowl practices. He was Drake May's sort of other receiver. Drake May, great quarterback at UNC. Josh Downs was the highlight in that offense with Sam Howell and then again with Drake May. But Antoine Green was like, man, this guy, he plays even a little bit bigger than his 6'1". He's making some catches. He's not super loud on film, but he's really consistent. And he could, neither was Marquez Callaway when he was in college. So those are the kind of guys you're looking for. Michael Wilson from Stanford made a huge splash at the Senior Bowl with his routes. He struggled with health at Stanford. He's 6'1", 213. He had a great Senior Bowl, but he struggled with injuries. So he might be there in round 3. I think probably that's a legitimate thing in this class is you picking your flavor of wide receiver, and a guy like that might be in the Broncos range. Might.
I'd be if I'm the Broncos, I'd be very scared to draft a guy with injury concerns.
Why? The Broncos are never injured.
Injured teams on earth every year.
5 Point Vid said that the Broncos had no injuries last year. So you're telling me that he was wrong?
Just zip it, please.
So you and the Chargers, right there with your. Anyways, we won't do that. Cedric Tillman from Tennessee, who is, again, the other guy. There's a lot of other guys in this draft. Jalen Hyatt is the guy at Tennessee, Hendon Hooker's main deep threat, big speed guy. Everybody's looking at the shiny thing, which is Jalen Hyatt. And Cedric Tillman's on the other side. Now, he's got good size, 6'3", 213. He was in Jalen Hyatt's shadow, but he has really solid tape. He is a good player. He could fill that contested catch role. He will be there in that 3rd to 5th round range, so the Broncos could go after a guy like that.
I like it.
There you go, Brandon.
And the one thing like with Cortland Sutton is like Broncos fans have loved Sutton. And I think like the talk about trading him isn't that he's a bad player. It's just that there's value with him and they need something else in the receiving game. But they have Tim Patrick coming back. And not having him last season was such a huge blow, in my opinion, for the offense as a whole, for Russ, because like Patrick was the guy in Sutton's shadow, kind of when we had this rotating thing of quarterbacks, which we don't anymore. And I'm so happy we don't, because we got our guy Russ is going to have him come back here. And Tim Patrick comes back. Jerry Jeudy really emerged as the dude late in the season once they like shifted his role. And I feel really good about Jeudy and Tim Patrick. KJ Hamler, injury issues. So it's like getting the value for that guy and then maybe finding somebody who kind of fits more of what you can do with Russ. And I don't know if Sutton just has, to me, like the speed, the separation that you kind of want with Russ a little bit, even though I think like you're like, just throw him the jump ball, because I think Sutton can do that. I just don't know if the fit's right. But that's my opinion. I don't know if it's football accurate.
What you're going to need to do is just say, okay, we'll take a pick at the end of the 2nd or the top of the 3rd. We'll ship Cortland Sutton off to Chicago. We'll take one of those picks that Ryan Pohl's going to get in this huge thing. And
you want Sutton in Chicago for Fields,
Actually, Sutton was my wide receiver 1 the year he came out, and I was that made me an outlier.
Yeah. No, he's good.
He was really good at SMU, and I'd seen him 2 years before. Crazily enough, I was digging through SMU tape for a quarterback that ended up being a UDFA, and I was like, who is this monster that he's throwing to? that guy's got to be coming out soon because he's huge. I looked it up. He was a true freshman at the time. And I was like, holy crap. Like, I'm putting his name down. And when he comes out, I'm going to be watching. And he continued to get better for the next couple of years at SMU, but SMU still isn't a powerhouse. And a lot of people, devalued Sutton's game because of that. But I actually said that, put out some lists that had him up there. And Sutton reached out to me when he was still a collegiate player before he was drafted and said, world needs more draft analysts like you that are blah, blah, blah. And I was like, holy crap. It was one of my very first player directly reaching out to me. It doesn't happen very often, even now, years later. But Sutton was like, yeah, you're right. You're seeing it. And I've been a big fan of his game. I'm realistic about what he is, right? He is not a superstar, but again, he hasn't had great quarterbacking generally in Denver.
You played best with Drew Lock.
Yes, he did. And so if you got him a better quarterback and an offense that catered a little bit more to his strengths, I still don't have any illusions about the fact that he would automatically morph into a, top, maybe even 10 receiver. But could he be a top 20 receiver in the NFL with a quarterback that agreed with him in a system that was, I think he has that physical skill. He hasn't shown it, certainly, in Denver for the most part. If you look at his receiving totals outside of the 1 year, pretty pedestrian for a number one receiver. But I think there's something there, and I don't think he's going to be at a premium. If you're going to go after anybody in the free agent class, it's not a great wide receiver free agent class, so you're going to have to overpay for talent. Again, the draft isn't super deep for, again, that number one sort of role where you can just plug in and count on the guy. Maybe you can get Courtland Sutton for a value, and I think you're, again, sort of buying low, and there's more potential there. So it's a good spot.
That's the thing, too. So you're saying that you like Courtland Sutton, but you want him to be punished and go to the Bears? That doesn't...
See, punishment...
See, like, why would you... I thought you liked him. Like, why would you want him to suffer and go to Chicago?
There's the logo.
Anyways, I don't hold it against you that you have all the Packers gear on your desk.
Here's a question. What would you have done if the Bears said they were going to trade Justin Fields? How would that have made you?
That would have been a riot, I think.
Yeah,
that would have been a riot moment. No, I like Justin Fields a lot. Yeah, exactly. Grossi's like, oh, please do it, because he doesn't want to face him.
It'd be such a shame. I would hate for that to happen.
He's like, poke. Yeah. No, I think Justin, has his areas to grow in, but he is also exceptional in other areas. He showed that last year. Literally I think it was the 50+ yard touchdown runs by a quarterback. Like, the record,
it was insane,
was 3 for a career. Or 60+ yard touchdown runs was like the record for a quarterback career was 3, and he broke it in a month.
Yeah, it's insane.
Like, he broke it in a month with no support, so
it literally took Luke Getsy going, you know what? Maybe we should actually cater the offense to this guy who could run really well.
Because we don't have a lot of other things, and he seems to be pretty good at it, and pretty good turned out to be historically awesome. He does need to develop in the passing game in certain areas, but then you see when he has time and the routes are open, he's a very good passer. And you heard, it was funny, a lot of OSU players, Ohio State players at the combine this year got asked about Justin because Bears are number one pick. He's in the news, whatever else. And they had some very frank comments about people that devalue Justin Fields. He's like, well, if that's what one of them said, if that's what you think, you should probably just watch some tape. Because you're wrong. He was flat out like, if that's what you think, you haven't looked at the right thing. That guy can throw the hell out of the ball. And we all know it. He terrorized us all in practice, blah, 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 blah. They went on and on about the fact that, hey, if you don't believe in Justin Fields, that's a you problem.
But it just goes to show, you look at, because that's when they drafted him. Bears fans were like, oh my God, this is our savior. And I said, he could be really, really good. It's just about the front office not completely screwing him, right? And just and actually tailoring the offense to him. Because I talk about this with Trubisky, because I was a Trubisky defender, even though he was on the opposing team, saying listen, this guy is not going to light anything up. He's not going to set the world on fire, but he has talent. And once you start accommodating for that of him extending the play, he's a mobile guy. But then they just wanted to make him a pocket passer. And I'm just like, what? Why are we doing that? Because at least coach to the talent that you have, not the guy that you want.
It's 100%.
It's such a stupid. I'm glad like the NFL is changing, and it's just taken so long for NFL teams to realize they can win, and they can win consistently, and a lot with a quarterback who isn't a traditional pocket passer. And instead of trying to like make dudes who aren't really that, it's like there's more team. It's not every team. There are more teams open to facilitating their offense to their strengths. And like, even if you think about Josh Allen, who is unanimously one of the best quarterbacks in the league, like if Buffalo just didn't ride it out with him, like they just didn't stick with him, what kind of waste of that talent would there be? And then you think about like just going like from 2010 and lower, maybe dudes who would have thrived in today's NFL that just didn't get the opportunity to develop or to build around their skill set because you had all these stubborn coaches, all these stubborn organizations. You're going to do it this way because that's the way it's worked in the NFL. I don't give a shit what they do in college. You're in the big leagues now. Like that type of mindset, it's changing, and it's good for quarterbacks, and it's going to be good for a guy like Anthony Richardson as long as he goes to the right place.
Yes. Well, because I think you saw like in the past, and what I mean by the past, like the last like 20 years or so, you had these QBs who were like one or the other, right? They were like good pocket passers, but then like maybe they weren't runners or they weren't like super athletic in terms of just mobility. But then you had the guys like the opposite who could just run the hell out of the ball. And they had like a pretty nice throwing arm. So like the Colin Kaepernicks of the world, for example, like he destroyed the league. He destroyed my soul like 2 years in a row. And it was like, damn. But then, like, you know, they started honing in on him, not letting him be as mobile. And then, like, it had to be throwing. Or Kurt Warner came in and was like trying to help, like, coach Colin Kaepernick and like help him with his throwing. But now, like in the NFL, you see this hybrid of guys who are super athletic and can also launch the ball. Yeah. And like that, like if you can find that, and you could find a coach that is willing to cater to that kind of offense, like that kind of player, then you could have magic. Because that's what Patrick Mahomes is, right? Like Mahomes can run the hell out of the ball and he can throw it really, really well. And it's like, hey, let's let him do his thing and surround him with, you know, a Hall of Fame tight end as well.
Mahomes just does 90% of his running behind the line of scrimmage.
He does. Just dancing.
He's the slipperiest, slowest son of a bitch I've ever seen.
Yeah, I wonder why you feel that way, Perna. It's weird.
Oh my God.
No bias.
I've never seen a guy that looks so slow when he's running just not be able to be tackled. Ever.
You know,
he's
I
like
heard
if Tom Brady was athletic. Because Brady was so good at wiggling through the pocket, but that's all he could do. Mahomes can do that and he can run.
This is going to stick in your craw and you're not going to be able to unsee it. It's one of those things. I heard the description of Mahomes' running style as speed walking IBS.
That's a brilliant.
It is brilliant. I'm pretty sure it was Bum Chillips that came up.
Maybe it's just that upper body shake that
it is.
Guys can't tackle.
He's a power walker at the mall.
That's right. But we can't leave Grossi out. We talked about receivers for the Broncos. We should talk about a couple for the Packers. And the Packers are actually...
Suck it, Brandon. We talked about your stupid team.
Right. We gave you time. Okay, no, Packers are a little bit easier because they tend to adhere to a historical threshold a little bit more than a team like the Broncos or a little bit more than a lot of other teams at wide receivers. But the historical threshold for wide receivers for the Packers is 6 foot, 200 pounds. It'd be 6 foot, 200 pounds. They've taken like one guy under 6 foot and like 3 or 4 guys under 200 pounds, but like 2 of them were 196 or 197. Yeah. So right at. They also tend to like linear speed. They fall for guys that are fast in a straight line. They love it. And they will take chances, much to Tom's disappointment, on guys with less than stellar hands. They are okay with some drops because they like the big plays. They are likely losing one of their best run blocking wide receivers in Allen Lazard.
They're
good
losing.
Size.
They're 100% losing him.
As long as they don't lose him to Chicago, I am 100% okay with that.
Why? You don't want him?
No.
Why? He could be your wide receiver 1, just like Equanimeous St. Brown. Remember all the Bears fans after week 1 when he got that one touchdown?
No.
And they were just like, oh, thanks so much, Packers. And that was the only touchdown he scored all season. I remember. Oh, I meant.
I know you remember.
Oh, I
You
meant.
remember good. I'm having Mad Max 3 flashbacks. here.
EJ, but
Anyways.
I have to disagree with you though, because they have drafted some stellar wide receivers like Amari Rodgers, who was really just like set the bar for what wide receivers could be. But I'm gonna throw out a hot take for you, EJ. I'm gonna throw out a hot take, and then we can get into some wide receivers.
I'll take it.
If Aaron Rodgers gets traded and we get the 13th overall pick from the Jets, I'm over in like the 90% category percentile that I think the Packers would draft a wide receiver with one of those picks. I am really, really think that they would. Because
that is not a lukewarm take, given their history. That is a hot take.
For Packers, the Packers.
That is a hot take.
Because we get all our studs in the second round, right? Like Christian Watson, he looked great, but Devontae Adams, Randall Cobb, Jordy Nelson, all second rounders. So I'm just saying, if they get 2, so they get the 13th and the 15th, I would not be surprised if they swing for a wide receiver. There's a lot of reasons why, but yeah.
I wouldn't be surprised by that either, because again, that would mean Aaron Rodgers leaving, and you do want to do the thing where you build support around your younger quarterback and say, hey, we're going to make your job easier. We were okay with flogging Aaron and giving him limited talent because he's Aaron, but you're not Aaron, and we recognize that, and here's some help so that we don't all look stupid. Yes.
Question. 2-parter. First, if the Packers let's say they can get the first receiver off the board in the draft, who's the number 1 receiver right now?
Oh, we had this discussion last night while recording Bootleg, and Zay Flowers is Brett's number 1 wide receiver on the board. Zay Flowers out of Boston College, guy we interviewed at the Shrine Bowl, guy I like a lot and may end up being my number 1 when it's all said and done. But I said I haven't done enough work to really stack what I have as like 3 or 4 guys at the top and say that's my guy.
So
if Zay's my guy,
you do more study than Brett, is what I heard.
Sorry,
I heard you do a little more work than Brett.
Oh, I don't know about that. That guy is, yeah, we were talking about last night, both of our schedules and trying to fit things in and burning the candle at both ends and then lighting the midnight oil on fire. And what happens then? Like, it's just an inferno. It's really bad. So Zay Flowers is up there for sure. Quentin Johnson is a name that a lot of people have up there as, had some great tape at TCU. People are a little bit worried about the hands. So, if we're talking about Packer historical trends, it could be okay. But, those guys are at the top. Who else is at the top of my board? Sorry. Got to bring up board.
It's okay. I have another question too.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He said 2-parters.
If you're Aaron Rodgers, are you more excited to play year 2 with Romeo Doubs and Christian Watson? No, it's Doubs. It's Doubs.
It's Doubs.
Nope.
Doubs.
It is Amon and it is Doubs.
It's Amon. Right. Wait, EJ, how do you say Amon-Ra St. Brown's name?
I say that he's the most talented St. Brown brother.
That's obvious. But what? How do you say his first name?
Wait a minute. You know about his family,
it's
right?
Romeo Doubs for the wins. Yeah. Okay. Or the Jets with Garrett Wilson and others.
Elijah Moore
and others.
Brees Hall and the really good offensive line. Plus, they're probably going to pick a tackle to help.
They'll definitely go tackle.
Right. So I don't really think that's a question, right? I think at the place that Aaron Rodgers is in, but more specifically the place the Packers are in, because the Packers seem really like, oh, we don't want you to go. They seem fairly done. And
Ian Rappaport says no.
Well, I mean, a lot of people say a lot of things, and
I know.
We'll
trust
what
me.
Happens. I know you.
There's no way. There's no way that it's like, hey, go get wined and dined on a private jet for like 11 hours. And then just be like, no, but we want you back, baby. Like, you go and you could test the waters. That's like, again, they're going out on Valentine's Day. Your significant other is going out on a date with somebody else. And you're just like, I just hope that they come home. What are we doing?
Good hoping.
Yep.
Hope that works out for you. So no, I would be more excited to go play with the Jets roster.
Wow. See, I thought the opposite. Like because one of Rodgers' biggest complaints is, well, it seems it's the developing of the chemistry with the receivers.
Sure.
And I feel like he put in a good year's work with Watson and Dubs. And I think he's got to go to the Jets, and he's got to do that over again, where like.
But Brandon, no, you're missing a huge piece, my friend. You're missing a huge piece. Who was our number one wide receiver last year? Who was our number one leading receiver? Alan Lazard. Who's a free agent this year? Alan Lazard. He could be talking to the Jets if you're flying out here.
That's when they blossom.
Oh, yeah, no, they could.
The blossoming year.
The development
and
could
most
be a
experts agree with me.
Listen, oh my God.
Come on, rah, 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 St. Brown.
I didn't want to play a clip while EJ was talking.
Oh, that's impressive.
You picked the longest clip.
Still impressive.
But so to that point, though, I understand what you're saying, Brandon. But to your point is that he could be talking to the Jets and be like, "Hey, I want Mercedes Lewis, who's a free agent, because he said that he wants to end his career with him, and he wants Alan Lazard." They'd be like, "Hey, like, will you be willing to do this? Because it doesn't look like the Packers are going to."
I would love video of Joe Douglas's face when Aaron asks for that. Hey, Joe, this amazing roster that you've built, would you be willing to add a tight end who's 75 years old and a very good blocking wide receiver who's, a very good blocking wide receiver?
Well, I'm going to force
you be willing to do that?
I want Randall Cobb to come and play corner.
Randall Cobb is also a free agent.
Randall Cobb's got to be a coach, like a personal mental strength coach for Aaron. No, I would be interested to see how that works, but yeah, in terms of other wide receivers that might be in that conversation, people are talking about Jordan Addison. I don't tend to think he's in that top conversation.
I haven't heard any Jackson Smith. I have not heard any.
Jackson Smith and Jigba, I think, is going to be one of those players that people forgot about. He got injured. He didn't have a lot of production. Well, he had massive production, and then his production dropped off. But when I get to Jackson Smith and Jigba, I actually listen to the voices that are a lot closer to him than me, like Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave. And when the three of them sit in a room and somebody says, Kirk Herbstreit says, "Okay, who's the best athlete among the three of you?" And they all go, "That it's that guy." And he goes, "Yeah, it's me," which is such a wide receiver thing to do. It's me. And then they go, and he goes, okay, who's the best receiver? Because he's clearly looking for another answer. And they still go. Now, these are the two guys that were the front runners for Offensive Rookie of the Year in the NFL with quarterback situations, both turning around and going, no, it's clearly him. And he's going, it is. And if you watch him, this is why the Jarvis Landry comps really got under my skin, because I think that comp was half correct, 50% correct. Which is up until the catch point, he's very similar, because Jarvis Landry, people forget, was and somewhat is, not anymore, but very skilled in getting to the point where he caught the ball and catching the ball. After that point, Jackson Smith and Jigba is a completely different animal than Jarvis Landry. Like, his ability to make yards after the catch with that insane 10-yard split, his feel for the passing game, especially with his back to the defense in zone. You see him spin away from players and make lots of extra yards all the time. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Jarvis Landry very rarely did that when he caught the ball stationary. Jackson Smith and Jigba does it all the time. Like 8 out of 10 receptions. That's what you see from him. So I feel like it was I don't want to say it was a lazy comp. It was just a half correct comp, people focusing on one part that reminded them of another player, which is why comps are always difficult. But after that, Jackson Smith and Jigba, great receiver, will go in the first round as long as teams are comfortable with the medical. Now, we don't know what they found in Envy. All the doctors look at them. Some teams are going to say, yep, it's great, no problem, because they would say that after someone stepped out of a car crash. Yeah. And other teams are going to go, first round, look, we're picking top 15. There's a huge bust rate on wide receivers. We like this guy a lot, but there's this other position of need who's much safer. We're just going to do that. It's not anti Jackson Smith and Jigba. It's just pro. Holy crap, that guy's sitting there. We didn't think he was going to be, and we really need him.
Which is why it's only if they get 2. Like if they have 2 first-round picks, that's why they go after one of these insane edge rushers, because like it seems that 11 of them ran under a 4.6. Like there's monster athletes. One of those, and then they go, okay, well, we have a second one. It's pick 15. Let's go and get our wide receiver, who could be our wide receiver 1 or our wide receiver 2, depending on how Christian Watson is going to develop.
Yeah, this will make you happy.
Okay,
Tom.
I like happy.
Happy is if the Packers pick Jackson Smith and Jigba.
Yes,
I'll be pissed. That's a fine indicator
that's a stamp of approval right there. I'm going to call
and the Packers do it pretty regularly. I fall in love with players that I scout in the draft all the time. I was a huge Darnell Savage stan. Christian Watson was way up my wide receiver board. There are a long list of players that I'm like, get past the Packers.
If it makes you feel better, I loved one of your players that the Bears drafted last year. Velus Jones Jr. has been like a grandpa to me. You know, he raised me ever since I was a boy, and you know, he just got Medicare. You know, just turning the ripe age of 65, and I have a really strong emotional connection with him. So got him too.
Needs to pair him with Stetson Bennett, and it will be just.
I don't know. Is Stetson Bennett going to have time to play quarterback in between running all those Kia Georgia dealerships that he's got? I don't know that. You know, come on down to Stetson Bennett Kia. No, that's a long time. Shut down full cast joke. So stealing other people's material, but you know, look, Velus Jones Jr. It was tough because he was the first guy at a position of need that got drafted, not the first draft pick, not the highest draft pick, whatever. And everybody was just waiting. Like Chicago was like, give Justin a receiver. And then you got Velus Jones, who I think is a fine receiver / returner, like complimentary piece. And everybody was like, what? Like, that's it? What? That's it. And so it wasn't, again, really anti-Velus Jones. It was like, you didn't do it earlier, which was a lot of what we heard.
To be fair, you guys didn't know that Chase Claypool was coming down.
Okay. All right.
Pick 32.
I prepped for the abuse. Oh my God.
I love how this is shifted to like, it was about Brandon. Now it's about one wide receiver for the Packers. And now it's crapping on the Bears. It honestly is the best show for me possible.
Honestly, you know, if I ever wanted to like secure a return appearance on the old GPS show, this is the way to do it.
It is
like, hey, beat on the Bears for me.
Because I think the Packers, they have a number of need. They need tight end so bad because right now, currently, Josiah DeGuara is the only one who's on the roster because Mercedes Lewis gone. Robert Tonyan, like he could be a free agent too. Now they could re-sign these guys, but they have not had a tight end, like a weapon tight end since Jermichael Finley, you could argue, because they tried it with Bennett, they tried it with Jimmy Graham, they tried it with Robert Tonyan. He had like the 1 year where he had like about 10 touchdowns, but they haven't had like a guy. But I think they do need wide receiver too, like offensive linemen's up there, edge rushers on there. You could go D-line up there, safety potentially, you know, what they do with Amos, who thank you again for him. But yeah, I think wide receiver, if they are going to swing early, it's only if they have the two. Then if they don't, like maybe you're looking at like second, third round. I also never want to pick anybody in the third round ever again. But
well, yeah, I mean, no historical reason for that. But there's a bunch of guys that fit the Packers threshold that I think would be fine additions. A.T. Perry from Wake Forest. We've got an interview coming out with him later this week, and he is, I'm just going to flat out say it, he's the most impressive football player I have ever got to sit with, ever, any position. Like when he walked away from our interview, my jaw was on the floor. Brett was like, here, pick that up, pick that up. Like I was like, he is the most mentally prepared player. Like I would say he's in the top 15% of preparation for the NFL, not for college football.
Nice.
Like he is tremendous. And then the big question with him, he's tall, he's 6'3", he's right at that 200 pounds, 198. The big question with him was speed. He runs great routes. He sets people up. He's got very good hands. He went out and ran a 4.47. Like he answered all the questions. I couldn't be happier for AT. Really, really good, really, really smart player. Xavier Hutchinson, how poetic would it be to replace Alan Lazard with another guy from Iowa State who is over the threshold, 6'1", 203. Not super fast, 4.57, but lots of very successful receivers in the NFL have run around that time. Wouldn't have to go far geographically. That I could see that. I could see a lot of connection in that move. Jonathan Mingo from Mississippi, 6'1", 220, ran a 4.46 at 220. Had some flashes at the Senior Bowl, which is where I first started going, I should pay some more attention to him. Had himself a very nice combine. Trey Palmer from Nebraska, 6'1", 192, ran a 4.33. I'm sorry. This one just feels Packers. This feels like down the board, MVS, like we're going to
MVS.
ESP, whatever. We need this big, tall, fast guy, and he fits our profile fairly perfectly. Another complete wild card, Matt Landers from Arkansas, 6'4", 200, ran a 4.37.
That's
like,
insane.
There's your tall guy who's just cooking. Didn't have a ton of production at Arkansas, but again, that hasn't stopped the Packers in the past from reaching down the board and going, hey, this guy's really tall. He's really fast. We're going to run him in this role. Like, let's go. And again, you're not going to have to give a high pick for Matt Landers, and you're going to get that lottery ticket that if he hits and you get 3, 4, 5 of those a year, you're going to get 60, 70-yard touchdowns because he can run by guys.
So is there any one of those guys that you mentioned who, like, you look at them and be like, yeah, they're also like, they block their ass off? Because like, imagine with Alan Lazard, because you do mention Alan Lazard and he gets slept on a lot, but like he is pivotal for blocking. Like that's why LaFleur loves him so much. So I imagine there is going to want to be a type of replacement for like, hey, maybe in the later rounds, maybe we can go get one earlier, but let's just try and restock at the blocking wide receiver position.
Yeah, Hutchinson coming from Iowa State. They run the ball plenty at Iowa State. He's got good size, so he's well schooled. He's probably the sort of most pro-ready blocker in that group. If you're talking about physical potential, it's Jonathan Mingo at 6'1", 220. He is incredibly solidly built, but they don't do a lot of that at Ole Miss. So it would be we had him in for a workout. We sat him down basically with our O-line or TE coach and said, all right, this is what we're going to ask you to do on the outside pin of wide zone. You know, we need you to demonstrate that you've got the ability to not look like half the tight ends at the combine who ran their face into the sled and then practically broke their back falling over backwards. Like it was sad with a lot of the tight ends there, but so there's potential there. I think if you're just looking for plug and play, like, hey, we need a guy that can give us some receiving chops and already comes from an offense where has to do it a lot. That's Xavier Hutchinson.
Awesome. All right. That seems pretty solid. I mean, because I could see that. Listen, what I would love, Packers go get an edge rusher. Again, if they trade Rodgers, they get an edge rusher. They get an amazing wide receiver first round, and then they have to go tight end like second round. Because there's a bunch of good tight ends though, but I think it's like you said, there's a drop off that occurs. And like I don't want to get it before the drop off.
You're gonna go ways for the drop off in tight end in this class. This is Daniel Jeremiah, who is one of my idols. I've met him and I didn't pee on my shoes, so that was my great victory for the day. No, DJ's great, and he says this is the best tight end class he's scouted in a decade, and I tend to agree with him. There's been a sort of a dearth of tight ends. And again, we've had, 3 or 4 good ones, or we've had guys like Kyle Pitts who are unicorns and just like, oh, he's amazing. But the rest of the class, maybe they can fill a role. This tight end class is full of guys that can be starters in this league if they go to that situation. And I don't mean like 4. I don't mean like 6. I mean, like I'm looking at guys who are going to end up ranked between like 15 and 25 on my board that could be contributing members of a tight end room in year 1. If they go, say if the team they go to runs a lot of 22, which is 2 tight end personnel, like they could be significant contributors, which again, rookie tight end, significant contributor means like 350 yards.
Correct.
That's really good. But there are a lot of guys on this list, and it's not 6 or 7. When we talk about drop off, it's like, oh well, you get to the 3rd round, and if you didn't get somebody, you're not getting anybody. Not the case in this tight end class. This tight end class is deep.
How would you feel about Darnell Washington to the Packers?
Oh, I'd be very upset. I'd be super.
Got my mock draft.
I would be super duper mad because who he looks up to? Mercedes Lewis.
Mercedes Lewis.
Yeah, he
I'm
mentioned
telling you,
Mercedes Lewis.
Talk
It's
about just be like, okay, bye Mercedes, I love you. Whoop.
Yeah, oh,
Thank you.
100%. Like he is a sixth offensive lineman. He's
Be still
6'6",
my
almost
heart.
6'7". He's 260 mid pounds, 264 or
Falling in
whatever.
love with draft prospects that we'll never get. That's
Must be nice picking in the first 2 rounds, guys.
Shut up, Brandon. You got your Hall of Fame QB. Oh wait,
Oh, whoops.
happy anniversary.
Could have had Justin Fields too.
You could have.
That's my favorite thing to bring up when people are like, "Whoa, what are you going to do with Justin? How's Justin?" I was like, "All right, like straight up, Justin Fields, Ohio State, not knowing what he's done in the pros, just what you knew about him coming out as a Buckeye. Where does he fit in this draft? In this QB draft, Bryce Young, CJ Stroud, Justin Fields, like where does he fit?" And if your answer is not number one, given what he did in college, his college resume and his physical perspective, I'm with the Ohio State players. You should go back and watch some tape. Like he would be QB1 in this class. So why would you trade QB1 to maybe, and again, try and get QB1? Like that's the old Family Guy skit, right? I'm going to give you a boat, but what's in the box? It could be a boat.
It could be another Justin Fields.
Yeah, exactly. So, he would be, regardless of your evaluation of him, right in the top conversation. I say he's easily the top. If you disagree with that or don't like Justin for some reason, he's still at worst number 2 or 3, which is probably a guy that's going to get picked in the first 3 picks this year overall. So why would you trade that away to try and just do it again? Yeah.
But if you could trade it away for 5 more first round,
a boat,
5 more first round draft picks.
Yeah, it's not going to be 5 first round draft picks.
Yeah, it's not.
10 more first round.
10 I like the way you think, Brandon.
It's the Rams. It's the Rams.
Solid escalation.
We're done. We don't
Take
care.
Jalen Ramsey with them.
It's just, you know what? Just take them all. I will say, Jordan Love. EJ,
what are you going to say about Jordan Love?
How do you feel about him coming out of college? What do you think about his potential?
Oh, do I have it? Hang on.
He has actually a shrine to Jordan Love.
I had to buy the hat.
What?
Because I said Nevada, because I'll do this with certain college teams that have similar color schemes. There are a few that I will mess up. And one time on a podcast, when I was talking about him, I said Nevada, and they were like, it was Utah State. And I was like, oh, shit. So I actually bought a Utah State hat as penance, much like you guys do, a little bit less extreme than your bets. But I have a Utah State Aggies hat, which is actually pretty dope. It's got like the Raging Bull on it. And it's, dark blue and silver. It's cool. But I used to have it right beside my desk. I apparently took it upstairs, but I was going to throw on my Utah State hat. I thought he had a lot of potential, but a long way to go. I heard a lot of things about midway through his current pro tenure that made me worry significantly. And
Me too.
Yeah, it was
Drinking
pretty loud
problems?
there for a while. No,
Gambling?
not personal stuff.
No,
The way the organization felt about him.
Weird thoughts about the government.
Tinfoil hats, darkness
See the
retreats.
Unabomber?
Yeah,
because it wasn't this past season, because it got real quiet this past season because it looked like there was progression. It was the season before that I had people reaching out going,
no, don't do it. Yeah, and strangely, when that happened, when he had to play.
Yeah.
Like he had one game versus the Chiefs and everybody was like, oh shit, Aaron, what do you want? Like, we'll give you whatever it is you want. Like, no, I don't care. Just
way better than Patrick Mahomes that day though. What?
Not that. Like, yeah, but it was truly ugly. And people were like, okay, if it's that or you again, and
we'll give you whatever.
Yeah. That's when Brett said, clear the decks, do whatever you have to do. I don't care if it's, $100 million guaranteed for one season. You keep
there
him.
has been a shift within the
there
organization.
Absolutely has.
100%.
And you're right about it getting quiet. And in a lot of cases, that's a bad thing. In this particular case, that was a good thing because the noise was negative. Noise was
the people that I had reaching out to. I was like, oh, you should not have that information. But the fact that you do, that's bad. Like that's it's not good. So
yeah, there was a rough spot in the middle there. It seems like the parties, and look, Green Bay has rough spots with its quarterbacks. So that's what it does.
No,
yeah, they just do it.
So it wasn't terribly unexpected, but I was happy because, look, a lot of people think that as a draft analyst, as somebody that looks at all these players, that I want people to fail.
Yeah.
And that is the farthest thing from the truth. I want every one of these guys to be awesome. Is that going to happen? Absolutely not.
No.
It's just not how life works. I want every one of these people that I said, hey, maybe they're not going to be that great, to go out and turn into a freaking all-pro. Because I have, still do regularly, eat my words about that stuff and say, good for them, man.
Yeah.
They just secured the bag. They got generational wealth for their family by doing something at an extremely high level. What does it matter what I said about them? And the answer is nothing. So I want all of these guys to succeed. I realize that's completely unreasonable, and I am happy to land on that side of the fence.
Yeah. Brandon does not want that for Tom Brady.
May his retirement not be friendly.
He's got a cat now.
I that was actually
He's got
cute.
a kitten.
I retweeted that.
He's got a kitten now, Brandon.
I said, okay, Tom, you get one win, and this is it.
So what's the lease on the kitten look like?
Tom Brady announces he's returning to the NFL, has kitten put down so he has time to play. That would be the headline if I know Tom, and I do.
And I do. And I do.
Right. Because, Perna.
Brandon, I just like when he's 105 because he's going to live like forever.
Oh, he'll outlive me for sure.
Yeah, like I want you on your deathbed to interview Tom Brady, and he's just like walking around like he's still doing like sprints and stuff. I want it, and you'd just be like, "Why won't you die?
Why are you the way you are?"
Yep.
Oh, I want video of that interview.
I do.
All right.
EJ, I appreciate you coming on and sharing the draft knowledge. Where can the people find you and all the things that you do?
Easiest place is Twitter @FootballEJ. Everything will be there. But if you're looking for video, head to YouTube, type in Bootleg Football. You will see all the good stuff that we're doing there. We are about to announce our slate of draft interviews, folks, that we're bringing onto the show. And I am mad scientisting about this. I am evil overlord that wants to take over the world because it's a great slate, better than we've ever had. And I've had to sit on it for like 2.5 weeks after putting it together. And now I get to,
awesome.
I got my approvals from my peoples today to say, no, it's okay. You can say I'm coming on. So we've got a couple of them in the can, and we've got like 4 more to go. And it's going to be a great season, all gas, no brakes. But I really want to thank both of you for letting me on. This is a lot of fun.
Yeah, man. No, thanks for coming on. Thanks for giving us real football info. And anybody like wants to learn about draft prospects, about anything going on, and during the season, even like breakdowns on players.
Yeah.
Check out.
Oh, I would be totally remiss, speaking of during the season, if I didn't thank Tom for crashing one of our draft live streams. He brought the Grossi Posse on a Thursday. It was my first experience with the Grossi Posse. It was very positive. All of a sudden, the chat exploded and started going like a cash register at Costco on the weekends. And I was like, "What is this?" And then I was like, "Oh, Tom's here, and he brought his army." Yes, it was great. It was a lot of fun. So thank you for that.
It's all
Appreciate
great
you,
until
buddy.
they force you to convert.
Yeah. And that's it. So
you might not know this about me, but I'm Irish and like Hawaiian. So there's a lot of drinking and fighting, and converting's not really the thing.
That's just be the facts. Yeah, so go check out Bootleg Football. Follow EJ on all the socials. No one's ever said that in the history of the world. Brandon, what do you got coming out today, buddy?
Probably a video about Joe Mixon possibly shooting a kid. Nothing too serious.
Oh, well, on that
Possibly, allegedly.
everlasting and uplifting note. Oh,
He says
boy.
possibly allegedly after a 10-second pause.
Oh.
I said it.
Right, but you know where the soundbite clip will go.
Yep, you know exactly.
I got I'll
Right in
download the
between those
stream. They
two.
can't get me.
Oh.
Brett Favre can't get me.
He can't get me. He can't get me.
I just imagine Brett Favre sues anyone now who doesn't use the word allegedly.
Allegedly. Okay, that's a nice uplifting topic. I'll have some video coming out today. There's so many I can do. I don't know. I really there's an interview.
A video as a kid reacting to Joe Mixon.
Now I'm just imagining like a kid knocking on Joe Mixon's door on Halloween. It just opens into a shotgun. He's like, just get out. Just get out. Sorry. There's so many things I can do. There's so many things I can do. Well, EJ, I appreciate you. EJ's like, I'm just gonna sit through this. Oh God.
No, I've been doing a lot of radio spots going up to the combine. That's new for me this year, and that's a whole nother gig outside of podcasting. And there's a little bit of sit through, but you get to hear what the hosts are saying. Like during the commercial breaks, people might not know this about radio. When they bring you on, the producer will call you. You go on radio, you've all done this, and they say, hey, we're going to bring you on in 30 seconds. We'll be back from break. And you're like, great, be here. And then you can hear the ad, but a lot of times you can hear the hosts talking. Yeah. I was on one last week, and they were shifting to a new studio, and they were talking about that. And one of the hosts was pretty nervous because there was some technical stuff. We've all had that wasn't working. One of the other hosts says, oh yeah, my first show, I puked. Right in the bucket, just pulled out the waste can, like right in the break, puke, came back, read it off. And then it's like, hey, EJ, let's talk about the draft. And I'm like, yeah, I'm puke bucket. Right. Got it.
I hate that when like the hosts are more fun off the air. And then when you get on, they ask you like the same questions for everything. They're just like, so how do you feel about this draft prospect? And now this one. And it's just, then they're talking about pooping in buckets and stuff. I prefer the poop. For the poop. But folks, thank you so much for watching. I'm Tom Grossi. That's EJ. That's Brandon Perna. This is GPS. And you have been navigated. Brandon, what's that scowl? You got a look on your face.
And you've reached your destination.